Should you use 5 marches, 4 marches, 3 marches, 2 marches, or even a single march for the open field in Rise of Kingdoms? This is the question a lot of people ask, whether they should go for quality being less marches or quantity being as many marches as they possibly can bring. And today, I'll be giving you the best answer I can. I'll go over advantages, disadvantages, which is going to be best for your account, which is going to be best for your kingdom. All of that will be considered in today's video. If you are trying to build a murderable for your account, or you're a new account and you're looking to see how you're going to build your account, you definitely should check out today's video. Now let's start off with the advantages to running smaller numbers of marches, and there are quite a few, and there are a few disadvantages which I'll go over soon. Starting off, the first advantage to running smaller marches is you can really focus down on the commanders and your equipment. You don't have to worry about running 5 marches. Maybe you're running 2, maybe you're running 1 march, maybe you're only running 3 marches. Anything like that, I'd say, is a small murderable. That is a small number of marches, and for most free-to-play low spenders, this is the best way to go, running those small number of marches, because you can just maximize the power of whatever commanders you have. So for example, I run 3 marches. I didn't get my second march until I had expertise to my Boudica and expertise to my YSG. Then I went and I got Nebu and Cyrus. That's how I built my account. I had a full legendary set of gear before I even got a second set of gear. So when you run under 5 marches, under 4 marches really, you're very much focused on your commanders, and you kind of just swap them. You run 3 marches, and whenever the new, better commanders come out, you swap the old ones and you bring the new ones in. Yes, that's going to be quite expensive. Sometimes you skip a generation, so let's say maybe your infantry are doing just fine and you didn't care about when Sargon released. Don't get Sargon, maybe you're just stuck with a Guan Scipio and you're running the 3 marches. Guan Scipio, Boudica, YSG, Nevsky, Joan, something like that. That's what you'd call like a really good 3-march murderable, and that's a murderable that you've focused in on your commanders a lot. And for free-to-play low spenders, the best way to focus in on your commanders and your equipment is really to run less marches. Because if you do run a lot of marches, you're focusing on a lot of different commanders, and it's really hard to build a good 5-march murderable and consistently keep it at a good level. Next, if you're running a smaller march murderable, if you do get caught out in the open field, and I mean, like, let's say you're fighting in the open field and you get caught out, maybe you lag, maybe your teammates just all kind of died and you were like the last one left. If you're running 3 marches at the max, your hospital isn't going to fill up. It's not going to be too bad. Like, obviously it's going to be expensive, but it's not going to be too bad for you. If you do get caught out in the open field, if you make a mistake, first of all, your commanders are going to be more powerful because you've really focused in on them. And then if you do get caught out, you're going to be in a good situation where your hospital doesn't fill up and you can still deal some damage while you're trying to get away. Now, another good advantage, and this is mainly for a lower number of marches, around 2 marches I'd say is where this advantage really is prevalent, is you can control your troops amazingly. You can micromanage them. First of all, whenever you hit enemies, you know where your troops are going to swing. Unlike a 5-march murderable where they swing all the way around an enemy, your troops are going to swing slightly to the left or slightly to the right, and that's it. And obviously, one is going to attack head on. So you know as a fact that whatever you do with your troops, that they're going to swing in a certain direction. And unlike when you're running a 5-march murderable, they don't go around the back of your enemy troops. This means that if you're fighting in a major murderable situation, if you hit a march, you don't have that risk of swinging all the way back where your opponents, you may be deep in their murderable and they can just hit you, because on the open field, a few meters makes a massive difference to basically how much damage your marches take. One side, you can easily get away, and that would be the front of the enemy. And the back side of the enemy, you're screwed. They're going to maybe 10 swarm you, 20 swarm you, depending how many people there are on the open field. Also, another thing to note, that when you are running those 2 marches, let's say right now your march is getting low and you've noticed that you can pull it out. Yes, I know that this is also available for 5-march murdables, but it gets a lot more complicated when you're running 5 marches, because if you pull out 5 marches, you have to control all of them. You have to make sure that don't get all swarmed. You want to also pull out the marches that are lower, and it gets way harder to manage. And for a free-to-play low spender, you don't want to take those extra sevs if one of the other marches gets swarmed down. You want to make sure that you're pulling them out when they hit red or even yellow HP like this. You'd want to retreat, because it's going to give you a ton of sevs if you don't. If you're running a 5-march murderable and you're a whale, you maybe don't care if you lose 1 or 2 marches and get a bad trade on them, and the other 3 get a good trade. For a free-to-play player or a low spender, you really want to be trying to get good trades on all your marches. Also, with running a small number of marches, you can actually leave your city quicker. And I know that may sound a bit stupid, like, why do you care about that? Well, let's say there's someone walking past your city that you could easily hit. Let's say right now there was an enemy right here, and I could hit them. I pop out with 2 marches. I pretty much got my whole murderable out there. It's fully equipped. It's fully ready to just destroy. There's no reliance on any other commanders. It is my murderable. It's going to get a ton of kills. So even being able to leave your city a lot quicker is an advantage to having a smaller number of marches. Another advantage is I can be open field fighting and filling garrisons and rallies while basically still having my whole murderball out. I said before that a small number of marches is up to 3 marches at the maximum. So if I'm running 3 marches in the biggest murderable battle, so let's say that we've got complete field control, but I'm there to help sustain the field control. I'm running my 3 marches. I can still join a rally and a garrison with my other 2 marches, or I can double fill a flag, or I can reinforce 2 rallies. You can see that I have a lot more freedom when I'm running just 3 marches. It's way easier to be involved in garrisons and way easier to be involved in rallies when you're running less marches. You can also possibly, if you don't need a lot of the slots that you have extra, go and leave a march at a rune place. Maybe leave 2 marches. One at a rune that's going to help you in the open field, and one that's going to speed up your healing. That's another thing you can really do when you have less marches. Now, there are some disadvantages to running less marches. First of all, a lot of the time, if you get caught out in the open field, you sometimes don't have that firepower to really back yourself and save yourself. If a person rocks up with 5 whale marches and they hit you, you're probably going to die because you're getting a 5x swarm on 2 marches. They're kind of dead. Yes, they're going to trade amazingly when they are only getting hit by around 2 to 3 marches, but when you get 5 swarmed, you're kind of done for. That's an issue with running 2 marches. Another issue is it doesn't really help your kingdom. Yes, you're going to get more kills and get better trades, but at the end of the day, if you have more field presence, which means you have more marches on the field, you're going to win the KVK. If everyone is running 2-3 marches each, then there's a high likelihood that when you are trying to push, you probably don't have the field presence, or your enemies are getting very bold and brave because they notice that you don't have as many marches as them and they just start throwing themselves into your murderable. That's something that really is prevalent when you are running less marches. You also do miss out on the swarm bonuses whenever you hit any enemy troops. So you can see, let's say I was running a 2 march murderball and I hit an enemy troop. Once I hit it with 2 marches, I get an all damage boost to however many marches are hitting. If I'm running 5 marches, the all damage boost is much higher. I think it's at around 6 or 7 or 8%. If I'm running a 5 march swarm, it's really good. But if you are running less marches, you do not get that very nice buff. Another disadvantage to running less marches is that you have to really be replacing the commanders quite often. If you're running 2-3 marches, you are looking to make those marches meta. You don't really want to run commanders that are older or slightly outdated, because otherwise your 3 march murderball won't be as strong as it can be. And in those situations, you want to upgrade that murderball so that it can stay as strong as it can be. Otherwise, you're going to be very ineffective on the field. In a situation where you have mediocre commanders in a 3 march murderball, it's not going to be very good. I'd rather have a bunch of very powerful commanders, and that's where the issue comes in, having to get all the new commanders pretty much as soon as they release or within a very short time frame. Now, let's discuss the advantages to running a lot of marches. First off, I like to call this intimidation, okay? If you're running 5 marches on the open field, which is a lot of marches, people are going to see that. A lot of newer players maybe who have less marches like myself, are going to see 5 marches on the open field and they're going to think, no thank you, I'm not interested in that, and will probably just run away. You have that intimidation factor, which is going to somewhat protect you. If you think about it, what's going to be more intimidating? Someone running 5 marches like this, and they're moving around all these marches about to swarm everyone that goes near them, or somebody who's running 3 marches or 2 marches or even just 1 march. Seeing 1 march on the open field isn't too threatening. Seeing 5 marches really is a threat. Seeing 6 or 7 is insane. So that's one thing, intimidation factor, and that also works in the open field. If you are open fielding with your kingdom, you're really being a kingdom player if you have more than like 3 marches, because if someone sees 5 tokens on the open field, like they're zoomed out like this, they can see their murderball here, it's got like, let's say 50 people, and they see your murderball here and you've got like 100, they're basically going to lose a lot of morale, they're not going to fight very well, maybe some people will just straight up retreat, and people who run 5 marches help contribute to that. Even though the enemies might be getting good trades, they're going to see 100 marchers walking onto their territory, and then they're just going to think, there's no way we're going to hold this back. Another advantage to running 5 marches, if you are running 5 marches and your whole kingdom is doing a very similar strategy where you go for quantity over quality, you can just swarm things. If you have enough people and you just like 30 swarm a march, every single trade is going to be pretty much positive. It does not matter what commanders you're running. You have to have a kingdom that does this though. So let's say you've got maybe 2 very good marches. Maybe you got like a Boudica LIANG, a Nevsky Joan, and then you've got like mediocre marches. You got like a Ramses in there, a Gilgamesh. You might have like, for example, some cav commanders such as maybe an Attila, maybe a Khan, a Saladin. Yeah, some of those semi-average commanders in your murderball with a few fairly good marches. If your whole kingdom is doing the same thing, you're basically going to carry each other because you're going to all be running 5 marches and you're just going to just swarm everything. Everything that comes into your way is just going to get absolutely annihilated and swarm down. It does not matter. This is where you have to have a kingdom that is doing this though. Most kingdom players run less marches over more marches. And if you are running a bunch of marches and your whole kingdom is running a bunch of marches, you're going to wreck on the open field. Otherwise, though, it's just going to be bad trades if you're running those mediocre commanders. Another benefit to running 5 commanders is that you do get the extra swarm damage. Like I showed before, where you can get up to 10% increased all damage. With 5 marches, you get that increase in all damage, and it is a really nice increase. Another advantage to running 5 marches is you're going to get kills way quicker. Running 5 marches is going to obviously give you kills quicker than running 3 marches because you're going to be hitting more people for more damage, but the issue is you're going to probably be taking more damage. Unless you're a whale, you're just going to have meta commanders. Most players can't afford to have 5 marches of meta commanders, so you're going to be dealing a lot more damage, but you're going to be taking a lot more damage, and that's the trade-off. Your trades are going to be slightly worse if you're running 5 marches. Now let's discuss the disadvantages to running 5 marches. And first off is the resource cost is way higher. Running 5 marches, like I said before, you're going to take a lot more sevs. If you are swarming down a person with 5 marches and your marches walk around the sides, which is something that typically happens, usually one march is going to get caught out and hit first. You basically either have to give that march up or retreat with all 5 marches. And the issue is if you give that march up, you get a big hospital bill. And then the issue is if you don't give that march up and you do retreat, you have to go find more people to kill. And sometimes some marches may be slower, some may be faster. And that can also create difficulties in your murder ball. So you have to have a lot of resources and speed ups on the ready if you want to run 5 marches. Another disadvantage is that your equipment, your commanders, all of this for most low spending free to play players won't be at a very, very good level. If you're running 5 marches, I doubt every single march is going to have a full legendary set, especially if you're an account that's around the age of my account. Even if you spend a fair amount of money on equipment, you're not going to have enough blueprints, you're not going to have enough materials, none of that stuff you're going to have enough of to really have 5 marches properly equipped with a very good amount of gear. Maybe you'll have 5 marches with all purple gear, and maybe 1 march with some legendaries mixed in there, or you have legendaries mixed all around. Yes, that can work, but once again, it's going to be way worse than running a march that's just loaded with legendary gear, a march that's got a fair amount of legendary gear on it. Commanders also become a serious issue if you're running 5 marches, especially with a newer account. Most people who've just gotten to Season 3 or Season of Conquest don't have access to 10 very good open field commanders to run 5 marches. This means either you have to get commanders to a lower skill level than I would recommend. For example, maybe you want to run 5 marches, but you don't have a good primary for your 5th march. So you're running like a 5-2-1-1 Gilgamesh like my one here. Yes, he's going to work like barely, but he's not going to do too good. And you're running the 5 marches there, and you really want to run 5. You maybe got the equipment to barely run 5 marches, and you can see that's where the issue comes in. You don't have the commanders, you don't have the equipment, so you're going to be trading worse. You're going to take more sevs, which means you're going to have to heal more hospitals, which is going to cost you more resources. Though you will be getting more kills because you are hitting more people and you're dealing a lot more damage within a shorter period of time. Another issue here is that you are definitely not able to control 5 marches as well. You have to really consider sacrificing some of your marches whenever you're running 5, because if you hit an opponent when you have 5 marches on, you're basically dooming at least one of your marches to either get attacked a lot, to get swarmed a little bit. Something is going to happen, because you can see here, they're going to swing all around this enemy. And if you're fighting in a real murderable situation with 5 marches and your troops are swinging around the enemy, there's going to be enemies either behind this person or there's going to be enemies on the side, and they're going to see your marches. Maybe they're playing in the dot game mode where they can see just the march and can't see how many there are. They're just going to attack you. They're going to hit you, and then you either have to decide, do you run away and take less kills? Do you stay and get more kills? How does it work? If you have weaker marches, you don't really want to stick around, but you also want to get the extra kills, and that's where another issue can really come in. Being able to not control your marches as well, it definitely is a big hindrance, especially if you're running 5 marches. Now, what's the best option? Do you run less marches or more marches? And here's the simple answer. If you've got a very old account and you got a ton of gold heads and you got a lot of equipment and a lot of good commanders, you can consider running 5 marches if you are willing to take the risk and you know you can manage them properly. If you are good at running 5 marches and you're skilled at doing it, you know how to do it correctly without being swarmed down whenever you hit people, go for it. If you're willing to lose the resources and you don't really care, go for it. If you're a whale, 5 marches are basically the necessity because you are spending a bunch of money. For lower spenders, free-to-plays, people who are not spending too much money on the game, I think 3 marches, 4 marches is pretty much a very good spot to stop. That's really where I would say you've got a good meta ball. It's going to outlast most other players if you max it out and you really micromanage your marches and play them well. Especially 3 marches and below, you can really maneuver them in a very good way. Anything above that, obviously, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. With 4 marches, 1 march will swing up to the side and you kind of want to control which side they swing up. So that is also another issue. One thing you can do is if you have 5 marches and you think that some are not performing as well currently with whatever the open field's doing, let's say maybe you don't have field presence right now, you have 5 marches on the field and they're just not doing good, maybe pack some marches away temporarily. use 3 marches for the time being, 3 really strong marches that you have, and just use those. Just wait, maybe the next day you'll have more field control and you can use your 5 again. You can always manipulate your motor ball in such manners where you don't have to have all your marches out at once. You don't have to have all your equipment on at once. You don't have to have all these commanders out in every situation. Overall, I think that running 3 or less marches is definitely better for your account, but worse for your kingdom. And then running 4 or more marches is definitely better for your kingdom, but is probably going to be worse for your trades and definitely worse for your resources. Now, if this video brought you some value and you want to know how to get even more legendary commander sculptures to run even more marches, then you definitely should check out yesterday's video where I discussed the race against time event. I basically give you the best way to win this event because this is a very free-to-play event and a lot of players have the capability of winning this. They just need to know all the tips and tricks. Now, I just want to say thank you for watching and I hope to see you in the next one.